And that's how an investor thinks. And that's why we're able to take people in 12 months from being a solo attorney to doubling their personal income, having an attorney on staff. Because if you start to think this way, everything becomes easy. We spend so much time struggling with what we think are difficult decisions. We have to start making decisions and acting like we're in that place there. A $50 million revenue firm owner does not busy themselves with what time somebody down at the bottom level of their firm is coming into work. There's somebody who needs to worry about that, but it's not them, right? So I'm not saying don't worry about what time people come into work. That's not the message. The message is we have to start acting as if we already got the result. And when we do that, that is when we can create that result. It's how we spend money. It's how we invest money. It's how we make money. It's how many clients we serve. It's the type of clients we serve. It's the type of business we do. And when you start thinking in this way, that is when you're going to really move the needle and start to create results in your business. Well, hello and welcome to another podcast episode here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I'm going to do something rare. It wasn't rare back in the day, but I don't come in here and do solo episodes very often. When I first launched the podcast back in 2019, initially I was doing a solo episode and an interview episode every single week. We were releasing 2 episodes a week. Really wanted to give the podcast some momentum, get the podcast on the map. But it was a lot. It was a lot of commitment. And honestly, with the solo episodes, the biggest challenge was deciding what to talk about. I had no problem getting behind the microphone and talking for 30 minutes on a topic, but choosing that topic was really the biggest issue. And I would find that I was sitting at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the night before it was supposed to be released, and just standing here at my computer wondering what should I talk about. That being said, we work with clients in many different ways. We have a full-fledged tax planning practice. We have a coaching program for solos that are looking to grow beyond themselves. And we do fractional CFO services for larger clients, larger law firms. And working with each of those clients in each of those arenas has given us a lot of fuel of understanding what challenges people are facing and what are the mistakes that they're making, or what are the things that we can do that if we just solve this one thing would help us overcome all of our other challenges. And that's what I wanted to come here today and talk to you about, is identifying some of that and laying this out in a way that maybe can help you see things a little bit differently, think of things a little bit differently, and you can change your perspective or do something different starting today that can really have an impact or a change on your tomorrow. So we're going to dive in. But before we do that, let me just tell you real quick, if you're interested in evaluating whether working with us is something that you want to do, one of the things that we do is we offer a strategy session. That strategy session, what we do, somebody on our team is going to spend 30 minutes with you, and they're going to help you identify what does 12 months from now look like. Like, what is your perfect ideal situation for 12 months from now? And then help you identify what are all the obstacles, all the things that are going to get in your way or stop you from achieving that. And then how can we overcome all of those things? It is a clarifying call. When you leave the call, you're going to have this true, absolute clarity about what it's going to take to actually achieve the results that you want. And if you just execute on that, you can't lose. At the end of that call, you'll also be given an opportunity to work with us, but whether you do or not, having that call with somebody on our team is going to be truly impactful in your life and your future of your business and what the next 12 months look like. So definitely book a call with us, spend that time, and you will not be upset that you went ahead and did that. ProfitWithLaw.com/strategy session. ProfitWithLaw.com/strategy session is how you can sign up for that. All right. Working with so many law firm owners, what is the one thing? Like, what is the thing that I'm finding is really holding people back? And the answer is mindset, right? But people throw the word mindset around, And I don't think we really understand what that means. I don't think we really understand what it takes to achieve a level of success. And that's really what I wanted to explore with you today, is I wanted to dive into what does mindset look like. We're all familiar with Michael Gerber's book, E-Myth. E-Myth was one of the first books on the business scene to really help business owners understand the difference between the doer, the person that's down, boots on the ground, executing on the work that is the deliverable to the client, versus the owner whose job is multifaceted, who needs to do a lot of things besides for being the baker. In Michael Gerber's book, he uses a baker as an example. So this person is a great baker and people love their baked goods, right? And so they decide to open their own bakery, but suddenly they find that they're busy with making sure that the shop gets opened on time, with making sure that the supplies come in and they have the right amount of supplies, and paying the vendors. And all of these things are stopping or slowing them down or keeping them from doing the baking. So they end up realizing they need to put somebody in and to do the baking, but then comes the challenge of that person doesn't do it as good as you. So that whole scenario or example really frames the challenge that we have as a business owner, where we need to start thinking of ourselves as the owner and not as the baker, right? So in this case, you need to think of yourselves as the owner and not the attorney. And there's a lot of data around this. But one of the things that I like to highlight for people when we're having any sort of webinar or any sort of sales conversation about working with us is our secret sauce with helping solos to grow and to double their personal income in 12 months is basically to help them hire their first attorney. And the impact of doing that is so tremendous because Clio Legal Trends did a report. So every year Clio does a legal trends report, and those reports are really cool. I strongly suggest that you sign up for them and you read them through, because they're very insightful into what's going on in the legal environment. But on their report, and this is, I think, their 2018 report, so we're going back a few years, they surveyed some 2,000 solo firm owners, and they basically said, how many productive hours are you doing per day for clients, and how many of those hours are being billed, and how many of those being billed are actually being paid. And what was crazy is, and I'm going to screw up the numbers here because I don't have it in front of me, but I'll give you the broad strokes. And I think it's 2.3, 1.9, and 1.6. The average solo firm owner was billing or performing legal services at 2.3 hours per day, billing out 1.9 of those hours. So basically, 0.4 of an hour every day on average was being done for the client, but not actually being billed to the client, either because it took longer than you thought, you got distracted during the work, so you felt like you needed to bring that number down. You were doing research that you felt you didn't know something, so you felt uncomfortable billing the client for that. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't bill it, but discounting before you issue the bill is a very common practice. And that's the effect of discounting. Now the client gets it, and they're getting a bill for 1.9 hours of work, and ultimately they're either negotiating discounting further, or some of your bills are going uncollected, and on average you're collecting on 1.6 hours. So this is not every day, these are the hours, this is on average over time. So you may spend 8 hours doing billable work one day, but you may spend another day doing nothing and just doing marketing, and another day doing nothing and just doing billing. So you may be doing other tasks other days, and it therefore doesn't feel like this is right. But if you really are honest with yourself and you think about it, it's probably true, right? So this study was done across a couple of thousand law firm owners. The data is pretty accurate, right? Well, if you brought in a full-time attorney, experienced full-time attorney into your business, right? And let's not talk about how long it takes for them to be fully booked, right? Let's just assume you have all the clients to give them, you teach them how to use your systems, your processes, whatever, and now they are fully booked. How many hours a day would you expect an attorney who's just practicing law, not doing anything else? That's what they're hired for, right? How many hours a day should we expect them to bill or to be doing billable work, right? Would you think that in an 8-hour day, it would be unrealistic to expect them to do 5 hours of work 6 hours of work. 6 is probably perfectly acceptable and expected, but we can even go with 5, right? You look at 1.6 or 1.9 or 2.3, any of those numbers, and look at that the multiplier of what you get by having an attorney doing the work instead of you, it's 2 to 3x, right? So having an attorney on your staff immediately makes you twice as I was going to say twice as likely to be successful, but that's a very poor choice of words. It gives you bandwidth to serve twice as many people, or to do twice as much in billables, or 3 times as much, right? So if as a solo you get to 250,000 in revenue, having an attorney on your staff should mean that you can get to 500 to 750 without you doing any legal work, right? The problem is that we don't think that way, right? Like, we don't think about that being an opportunity. We think about that being an expense. We think of what it's going to cost to hire an attorney who's experienced. We think of the fact that we're going to have to pay them $120,000 a year. We think about the fact that that's $10,000 a month. And if we look back on our $250,000, let's say we were making a 50% profit margin, which is typical for a solo, right? So I'm making $125,000, that's $10,000 a month. So if I hire an attorney, I'm paying the attorney my money, the money that I'm going to make. So that's the barrier, right? Like, that's the thing where we don't think in terms of I'm the business owner, and actually if I forego my salary temporarily for 90 days, we should be able to be at a level where I can take a salary and I can pay the salary, right? And that's where, when I say mindset, that's the beginning of the shift, where we need to think about things differently. As a business owner, the magic or secret sauce is not in doing the work. It's not an efficiency of doing the work, at least not at the small end of the spectrum, right? Like, when you're doing 10 million, it's all about efficiency, right? But when you're doing 250,000 and you try to be more efficient, you're going to eke out 10 to 25% more productivity from yourself. So you're unlocking a value of $25,000 to $50,000. But if you forget efficiency and instead hire for capacity, now is when we start to see the ability to make money, and make money off of other people's work. And that's what a business owner does. Not to oversimplify what law firms do, but essentially what law firms do is the same thing as any professional service, right? A doctor, an attorney, an accountant, a dentist, right? All of those people, they all do the same thing, right? We provide a service that somebody needs and we charge for it. But when you start to have other people work for you, you are making a piece of what we're billing that person out at, right? And when you start making enough pieces, you can make the whole, right? So let's say that you can make 1/5 of what an attorney makes as profit, right? Let's just say that your profit margin would be 20%. And we have one fully booked attorney. So we're going to make 1/5 of what one fully booked attorney can make. If I want to make this a whole of what one fully booked attorney can make, I need 5 attorneys. And if I make 1/5 of each one, I'm now making what a fully booked attorney can make. And guess what? A fully booked attorney is not 250,000. That was you as a solo. A fully booked attorney, it looks more like 750 to $1 million. So if you want to make a personal income of 750,000 to $1 million, you just need to have 4 to 5 attorneys on staff. And when we start thinking of it that way, when we start thinking of leveraging other people's work to create a bigger effect on the world, to create a bigger effect on our bottom line, that is where money is made in business. That is where business growth happens. And now the game that we play is, how quickly can we put more bodies in, right? Like, how quickly can we add more people? Now, there's all of the logistical answers that need to be answered, right? Like, how am I going to afford to pay for this? And how am I going to find the cases to fill their plate? And how, all of these, oh, how do I do this, right? But when we start asking the how question, we've already gotten into the weeds that are not important for us to be successful. The business owner needs to live at a level where we're not asking how. Instead, we're asking who. And I know that's cliche, but there goes another mindset piece for us as firm owners is, and us, I'm not putting myself into that category. I'm not a firm owner. But for firm owners, that piece of who, not how, is another big chunk of the mindset shift that you need to have. And I invite you to catch yourself for the next week. Every time that you're thinking, okay, how are we going to get this done? The moment you're asking that question, I want you to catch yourself and just write it down. I just asked how. I just asked how. And then I want you to try this. Switch the question. So it's not how are we going to get this done? It's who's going to get this done. And what you're going to find is that is a liberating question. That is a liberating way to think of things, because we carry a lot on our shoulders. And when we start asking the how question, it now has become our responsibility. And as the business owner, if we take too much responsibility, what are we doing? We're doing two things. Number one, we're carrying way more than we can handle. And that's going to come back and bite us, right? Like it's going to affect our ability to achieve the result that we want to achieve. But more importantly, number two is it's going to become a bottleneck. It's going to severely limit what we can do, because everything relies on us, because we're the ones figuring it all out. The reality is that there's a lot of really smart people out there, a lot of really capable people out there who can probably do everything that we do better than us. So if we just get really good at finding those people, we've solved the business dilemma, right? Like, we've won the business game. And that is the second piece of mindset that we really need to think about, is really training ourselves to stop thinking in terms of how am I going to do this, and start thinking in terms of who is going to do this, or who's going to get this done for me. Now, I did a talk at the Law Firm Growth Summit in 2024 where I talked about the idea of the law firm owner not just thinking of themselves as a business owner, but thinking of themselves as an investor. And this is yet another area where we have growth to be had, right? Because we understand the concept of, if I hire somebody and I put them to work and they do good work, that we're going to make a piece of the profit that they're generating. And if we do that with enough people, we're going to make enough profit that we're really happy over here, right? But the missing piece of that puzzle is the fact that this stuff doesn't happen for free, right? If I'm going to hire somebody, that person needs to be paid. And if that person's plate needs to be filled, we need to find the clients that are going to fill their plate, which means we probably need to invest in the marketing side, right? And an investor understands, and I lay it out like this, right? If you want to invest in Apple, right? Let's say we go back to 1990. And Apple was trading at, I have no idea what it was trading at, but let's just say it was trading at $25 a share, or probably less than that. And right now it's trading at $250 a share. So if in 1990 I had invested $25 in Apple, I would have $250 today, right? A 10x return over 35 years, not that great, but probably not the right numbers I'm sharing with you. But anyway, let's just say that was the case. An investor understands that I need to put up the 25 in order to get the 250 later, right? We got to put the capital to work. An investor doesn't think that I could decide today that I should have bought Apple shares back in 1990, and therefore I'd like to sell my shares today and make the return, because it doesn't work that way. Yet, as business owners, we try to do that all the time. The investment comes before the return. You've got to put the marketing dollars in if you want to get the return out. You've got to hire the person before you can reap the rewards of the work that person is doing. but we always want to have already done that. And we make decisions from the place of where we're at right now in terms of whether we can afford to do the investment that's going to create the next level of success. So it looks like this. I'm making $250,000 a year in annual revenue. My expenses are 50% of that. We're spending $125,000 a year. I'm making them $125,000. And I understand everything Moshe is saying. I understand that I need to hire an attorney. But I can't imagine spending $10,000 a month on that attorney. Not only that, but I know once I hire the attorney, I got to fill that attorney's plate, and I got to do it to 3 times the amount that I was able to find. Now, I've been able to successfully fill my plate with $250,000 of revenue without spending any money on marketing. But how am I going to get to $750,000? I'm probably going to have to do something. Probably have to spend on Google LSAs or Google PPC, or I'm probably going to have to spend on these listservs like Justia and Avo and things like that. Or maybe I'm going to have to, go to a ton of conferences and shake a bunch of people's hands and, or get some speaking gigs, or like all of these things cost time, they cost money, right? And now I'm looking at that, I'm saying, well, I need to do that. I don't know if I can, right? But we're looking at it from the wrong lens because we're looking at it from where we are today. Can I afford it based on the fact that currently I'm making $10,000 a month? And of course the answer is no. Right? But if we had a crystal ball and we could look forward, and you're looking at Apple shares today and you can see where they'll be 10 years from now, I mean, you'd find every single dollar you could to put into Apple, right? The reality is that we don't have a crystal ball. But what we do understand is that decisions of what we're willing to spend would be different if we were already in that future place. Here's an example. Currently, could you consider, the best way to frame it is like this, because this I've learned with my clients. If you're hiring your first attorney, your knee-jerk or automatic assumption is, let me find the one that's the least expensive, right? Because I can't really afford an attorney, right? So let me find a baby attorney right out of school, or let me find somebody who's not even an attorney yet, and I'll make them a paralegal, and then when they get their license, they'll become my attorney, right? And we try to find an attorney who we can spend $60,000 annual salary, and hopefully they're going to be worth or do the work of a $120,000 attorney some point in the future, right? Because we're thinking in terms of what we can afford today. But if you were already at $750,000 or $1 million, and you have an attorney, one attorney that's producing all of that work, and that attorney, I don't even want to say that they quit or that you fired them, right? Like, let's just assume that they were a rock star, they were perfect, and they got hit by a bus or captured by aliens, and they're not in your firm anymore, and you're already doing $750,000 to $1 million. Who would you go out and hire? Would you go out and hire a baby attorney because you're trying to save $60,000? Or would you go out and hire whoever can handle the volume of work that you already have as fast as possible, which means you're going to go for somebody who's got 5 years of experience. You're going to go for somebody who wants 120, 150. You don't care because, I mean, heck, we're bringing in $750,000 to $1 million on this one attorney. All I need to do is put an attorney in and do that, right? And we're willing to spend, you probably, if they're doing $1 million in revenue, you're probably willing to spend up to $200,000, $250,000 easy to have them do that work. But when we're in the current state right now, we don't think that way. But the reality is that we're hiring somebody to create that. Does it even make sense to think of in terms of trying to save $60,000 when the potential that you have is that 12 months from now you could be doing $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000? And this is the mindset shift that we need to have, thinking like an investor, is when we put up money today, it cannot be determined based off of what we're doing today. It has to be determined based off of what we're trying to create. And if I was trying to create a $750,000 to $1 million revenue stream, you bet your bottom dollar I'd be willing to spend an extra $60,000 to make sure that I'm putting somebody in who can get us there faster and better, right? As an investor. Not only that, but let's talk about marketing for a second. If you're currently not spending on marketing, or even if you're spending on marketing, you're doing $250,000, you're probably spending at most $2,000 a month, right? Do you know what you need to spend on marketing to create $1 million in revenue? Probably 10 to 15% of that, right? So let's say you needed to spend $150,000 a year in marketing to create that revenue. Well, $150,000 a year translates to, and I'm going to do some live math here, because I'm just going to open a calculator and just divide by 12, right? $12,500 a month. You need to increase your spend by $10,000 a month to create that. Now, you don't have to actually do it the moment that you hire somebody, but if you want to be at $1 million in 12 months, you can bet that by month 12, you're going to be spending $12,500 a month. Otherwise, you're not going to create that eventuality, right? Like, you're not going to do that. But in your current state where your personal income is $10,000, you can't think in terms of spending $10,000 more a month in marketing. It just doesn't compute. Because you're not thinking like an investor, you're thinking like a consumer in your current state of what you have in the bank account right now. But the reality is that if you actually want to create the future that you want, you have to think differently, right? You're not going to get to $1 million in revenue and suddenly then decide to spend $10,000 a month in marketing. That's not how it works. You're going to spend $10,000 a month in marketing, and you're going to do it for a few months before you get to the level that you want. Because you're not going to win the first time around with marketing, right? You're going to have to try a few different things. You're going to have to find the working formula that works for you. But 6 months of that, and you're off to the races. Do you know what a difference and impact it is in your life to have $1 million firm? Right? You'd be making somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000 personal income, right? You can double or triple your current personal income easily in 12 months by just putting on the hat of the person who's already 12 months further than you, right? And that's what an investor does. An investor never looks at what the current thing is going to cost me. An investor always looks at what is the potential return. And then if the return is good, then they ask the question of, okay, how am I coming up with the investment? Right? And there's a how question, right? And who is going to help me come up with that investment? Right? And that's the right question an investor should be asking. So when we're looking at our law firm and we want to grow and expand it, we want to scale it, mindset is such a huge piece of that. But we don't understand what mindset is until we start understanding that in order to create what we want to create, we have to operate from the future place, right? We have to insert ourselves into what that future looks like, paint that picture, and then we can understand what's required of us today to create that eventuality. And this is something that we do with our clients all the time. We're always creating the 12-month vision first. What is it that you want to do 12 months from now? What do you want to look like? Do you want to have an attorney on staff? Do you want to have 2 attorneys on staff? What does your revenue look like? And then we take that and we back that out into, okay, how many clients do you need to serve in order to create that revenue in that way? And then, okay, if your cost to acquire a client is X, this is what your marketing budget needs to be. And we need to step into spending that much to create that revenue. We need to have the right staff to serve that revenue, right? And that's how an investor thinks. And that's why we're able to take people in 12 months from being a solo attorney to doubling their personal income, having an attorney on staff. Because if you start to think this way, everything becomes easy. We spend so much time struggling with what we think are difficult decisions. I have a client, fractional CFO client, they're doing 4 to 5 million in annual revenue. They want to do 50 million. They want to get there in 3 years. And I sat in on a leadership meeting. And in the leadership meeting, they were having a conversation about how a certain person in the company was coming in late every day. And spent 20 minutes of the meeting talking about this person coming late every day. And when it got to the end of the call, I said, I have one observation of your leadership meeting. That's it. One observation. If you want to be a $50 million firm, you're not going to get there if your leadership is worried about what time people come into work. Right? If you want to create this vision here, we have to start making decisions and acting like we're in that place there. A $50 million revenue firm owner does not busy themselves with what time somebody down at the bottom level of their firm is coming into work. There's somebody who needs to worry about that, but it's not them, right? So I'm not saying don't worry about what time people come into work. That's not the message. The message is we have to start acting as if we already got the result. And when we do that, that is when we can create that result. So we need to think about all the different types of things that happen at that result. It's how we spend money, it's how we invest money, it's how we make money, it's how many clients we serve, it's the type of clients we serve, it's the type of business we do. And when you start thinking in this way, that is when you're going to really move the needle and start to create results in your business. And this works. I gave a lot of examples of a solo growing beyond themselves. This works for every client, every stage of business. And we do this with our fractional CFO clients. Every year actually every quarter, we're doing planning with them. And we always want to be looking 12 months ahead. We always want to be having that picture and understand where we're going. The vision that the CEO has starts with just a thought, right? Like, I feel like I want to do this level of work. Right? It's arbitrary, but it's something that becomes important, right? Like, hey, I want to be a $10 million firm in 3 years. Right now I'm at $250,000 in revenue. That is a massive growth from 250 to 10 million, right? But you know what? It's possible. It just requires you to figure out what 10 million looks like. And when you understand what 10 million looks like, we could then look at where you are now and where you want to go and make that path, right? So it's all up here. It's all in how we think, it's how we process, it's how we behave. If you want to be a $10 million firm, all you got to do is start behaving like one. And you will get there. So, to wrap it all up, there's a lot that happens in the path to success. There's a lot of decisions, there's good decisions, there's bad decisions. But if I had to put my finger on the one thing that clients who are successful, clients who achieve what they want to achieve actually do, that thing is that they understand that they need to change. They understand that their thinking needs to change. They understand that they need to think like an investor. They need to act like an investor. They need to think in terms of who's going to do this, not how am I going to do this. And they need to act like a business owner where they're not going to be the bottleneck. They're not going to be the person holding on to anything. Everything needs to be delegated out. And I know that at different levels of growth, that's less possible, right? Like, you need to still own some jobs and some roles, but that's your mission. Your mission is to get out of the way. How quickly can I get out of the way? That is how quickly you will exponentially grow. And that is the mindset shift that you need to have. That is the thing that needs to go on in here in your brain for you to understand how to get to where you want to go. So hopefully this was helpful to you, and this allowed you to maybe think of things a little bit differently. And if you want to explore what it might look like to work with us to help you get through this, to help you double your personal income in 12 months, then hop on a strategy session with somebody on our team. So profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. You can get that there. We'll link that up in the show notes. It should be in the description of your podcast player, on your YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time we release a new episode. And until next time, I'm Moshe, your host of the Profit with Law podcast, and also here to help you and serve and make you the most successful law firm owner that you can be. But the only way that we can do that is if we dig into your business, your personal situation, and help you with your success. So if you want to work with me directly, you want to have a conversation with somebody on my team first. So profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. I'll see you there. Take care. We'll see you next Thursday on another amazing brand new episode. Bye for now.